He came at her fast, no warning, no mercy. But with a single, calculated strike, she dropped him cold. The recruits didn't blink. She didn't smile. And no one ever underestimated her again. Lieutenant Commander Maria Doc Reyes had been assigned to Naval's Special Warfare Training Center in Coronado for exactly 16 weeks. At 5 feet 4 inches with jet black hair always secured in a practical ponytail and warm brown eyes that conveyed both professional competence and genuine compassion, she moved through her nursing duties with the kind of methodical efficiency that made her practically invisible to most personnel. She carried her medical supplies with practiced precision, treated injuries with expert clinical care, and maintained the kind of nurturing presence that characterized dedicated military nurses. To the SEAL candidates and training staff, she was simply their assigned medical officer, competent, caring, and completely predictable in her professional demeanor. The candidates knew her only through medical encounters and routine interactions. Ma'am, when they required medical attention, Lieutenant Reyes, when discussing her professional capabilities, or Doc, in the casual way that military personnel refer to medical staff. None of them had ever questioned her background beyond basic nursing qualifications, though some had noticed that she moved with unusual confidence and seemed remarkably composed during high-stress situations that typically elevated everyone's anxiety levels. Lieutenant Commander Reyes's daily routine was systematic and caring. She arrived early to review candidate medical histories, attended training briefings where she listened intently to tactical discussions, positioned herself strategically during exercises to provide optimal medical coverage, and delivered medical care with efficiency that suggested extensive emergency response experience. Her competence was universally acknowledged, her professionalism was exemplary, but her personal background remained essentially unknown to everyone at the facility. But the unknown can be dangerous, especially when it involves people whose true qualifications exceed their apparent roles. Welcome to Silent Salute, where we discover that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind the most compassionate professional assignments. Before we continue this incredible story, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that the most dangerous people are often those who appear most harmless, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. We're honored to share these remarkable stories with you. Class 296 was approaching the most challenging phase of their training. 26 candidates from diverse military backgrounds, all enduring the grueling preparation designed to forge America's most elite maritime warriors. The daily regimen was relentless, brutal physical conditioning, advanced weapons training, underwater demolition exercises, tactical simulations, and psychological challenges that tested every aspect of human endurance and mental resilience. Through it all, Lieutenant Commander Reyes provided medical support with the same steady professionalism that had characterized her entire assignment. The candidates had developed standard perceptions about her role and personality. She was professional medical support who ensured they remained healthy enough to continue the punishing training cycle. Her medical knowledge was comprehensive, her emergency response skills were excellent, and her ability to handle training-related injuries was unquestioned. But she was also remarkably gentle in her approach, speaking with the kind of soothing tone that seemed almost maternal in the harsh environment of SEAL training. Among the candidates was Petty Officer First Class Derek "Bulldog" Thompson, a former Marine Corps infantry veteran who'd served multiple combat deployments before applying for SEAL training. Thompson was respected by his fellow candidates for his combat experience and physical toughness, but he shared the common assumption that nursing personnel operated outside the warrior mentality that defined special operations training. Doc Reyes is probably the most caring medical officer I've worked with, Thompson had commented to his teammate during their 14th week. Always seems genuinely concerned about our well-being beyond just keeping us functional for training. She's got that natural nurturing instinct that most nurses have. Seaman First Class Carlos Martinez, who'd served as a Navy gunner's mate before SEAL training, offered his perspective. Some medical personnel just have that natural compassion that makes them effective caregivers, Thompson. She probably went into nursing because she wanted to help people, not because she was looking for adventure or excitement. But Martinez's assessment missed something important. Lieutenant Commander Reyes's professional demeanor was caring, but there were subtle indicators that suggested depths no one had bothered to explore. Her positioning during training exercises wasn't just medical, it was tactical. Her awareness of surroundings went beyond clinical observation to include threat assessment that seemed inconsistent with routine nursing background. The situation that would change everything began during the 16th week of training when Class 296 was scheduled for advanced close-quarters combat exercises. This was one of the most intense phases of SEAL training, where candidates learned sophisticated hand-to-hand combat techniques, tactical defensive procedures, and personal protection methods that could mean the difference between survival and death in operational environments. Lieutenant Commander Reyes was assigned to provide medical oversight for the combat training evolution, positioned at her standard observation point, where she could monitor candidates for signs of injury while remaining ready to respond to accidents or medical emergencies. Her role was essentially what it had always been: professional medical support and emergency response capability. The training was being conducted in the Advanced Combat Training Facility, with realistic scenarios that tested every aspect of candidate proficiency in personal combat skills. The exercises were carefully controlled, with multiple safety protocols and experienced martial arts instructors supervising every phase of the demanding training evolution. The morning session had proceeded normally, with candidates demonstrating various combat techniques, defensive maneuvers, and tactical responses to simulated attack scenarios. Lieutenant Commander Reyes maintained her standard medical oversight, monitoring for potential injuries while observing the complex combat training that tested candidate capabilities under controlled stress conditions. During the afternoon break period, the training facility received an unexpected visitor who would create a situation that no one could have anticipated. Marcus "Tank" Johnson, a discharged military contractor with a history of psychological problems and grievances against military personnel, had somehow gained unauthorized access to the base and was moving through the facility with obvious hostile intent. Johnson's background included previous incidents of aggressive behavior toward military personnel, and his current psychological state suggested escalating instability that made him extremely dangerous to anyone he might encounter. Base security had been alerted to his presence, but his location within the sprawling training complex remained unknown. Lieutenant Commander Reyes was organizing medical supplies in the equipment storage area adjacent to the main training facility when Johnson appeared in the doorway, his massive 6 feet 3 inches frame and obvious agitation making him an immediate threat to anyone in the vicinity. His psychological condition was clearly unstable, and his focus on Lieutenant Commander Reyes suggested that her presence had triggered whatever violent intentions had motivated his unauthorized base access. "You military people think you're so special," Johnson snarled as he advanced into the storage area, his voice carrying the kind of rage that indicated complete loss of rational control. "I'm going to show you what real violence looks like." Lieutenant Commander Reyes was positioned approximately 10 feet from Johnson's location, with limited escape routes and no obvious means of summoning immediate assistance. The storage area was isolated from the main training facility, and the sound of ongoing combat training would mask any calls for help that she might attempt. Johnson's approach was aggressive and purposeful, his size and obvious intent to cause harm creating a threat that would challenge most military personnel, much less someone whose official role was medical support rather than combat operations. His advance was methodical and threatening, designed to intimidate and overwhelm his intended victim. "Nobody's going to help you," Johnson continued, closing the distance between them with obvious intent to cause serious physical harm. "You're going to learn what happens when ordinary people get tired of military arrogance and decide to fight back." Lieutenant Commander Reyes remained calm as the dangerous individual advanced toward her, but something in her positioning and body language suggested preparation for defensive action rather than the panic or paralysis that most people would experience when confronted by such an obvious threat. "Sir, you need to leave this area immediately," Lieutenant Commander Reyes said with controlled authority that seemed inconsistent with her size disadvantage and apparent vulnerability. "Security personnel are on their way, and your best option is to surrender peacefully before this situation escalates." Johnson's response was to accelerate his advance, clearly intending to physically assault Lieutenant Commander Reyes before security forces could arrive to intervene. His size and apparent intent made him an extremely dangerous threat that required immediate defensive action to prevent serious injury or worse. "I'm done talking," Johnson growled as he launched himself toward Lieutenant Commander Reyes with obvious intent to cause maximum harm through overwhelming physical force that would have seriously injured or killed most people in similar circumstances. What happened next took less than 2 seconds, but demonstrated combat capabilities that shocked everyone who witnessed it. As Johnson committed to his attack, Lieutenant Commander Reyes moved with speed and precision that seemed to come from extensive training in advanced martial arts and combat techniques. Her defensive response was immediate and perfectly executed, utilizing Johnson's momentum and size against him with technical proficiency that suggested years of specialized training. Her strike was surgical in its precision, a single, calculated blow delivered to a pressure point that instantly neutralized Johnson's ability to continue his attack. The technique was textbook perfect, combining anatomical knowledge with combat training to achieve maximum effectiveness with minimal force, demonstrating expertise that far exceeded basic self-defense training. Johnson collapsed immediately, his large frame hitting the floor with a sound that echoed through the storage area. He was completely unconscious but breathing normally, indicating that Lieutenant Commander Reyes's technique had been precisely calibrated to neutralize the threat without causing permanent injury or death. Lieutenant Commander Reyes immediately checked Johnson's vital signs while securing the storage area and calling for security assistance, her actions reflecting both medical training and tactical awareness that suggested extensive experience with similar situations involving armed or dangerous individuals. Security: this is Lieutenant Commander Reyes at the equipment storage facility. I have one individual secured and unconscious, requiring immediate custody transfer and medical evaluation. The threat has been neutralized, and the area is secure. The entire sequence from Johnson's attack to his neutralization had lasted less than 2 seconds. The dangerous individual who had posed a serious threat to Lieutenant Commander Reyes was now unconscious and secured, having been defeated by someone less than half his size using a single, precisely executed combat technique. 3 SEAL candidates who had been approaching the storage area to retrieve equipment witnessed the final moments of the encounter, including Lieutenant Commander Reyes's surgical strike that had instantly neutralized a threat that would have challenged most military personnel. Thompson stared at Lieutenant Commander Reyes with obvious amazement, trying to process what he had just witnessed. "Ma'am, where did you learn that technique? That was some of the most professional defensive action I've ever seen." Lieutenant Commander Reyes was checking Johnson's condition while responding, her actions reflecting both medical expertise and tactical awareness that suggested extensive training in combat medicine and personal protection techniques. Previous training included personal protection and defensive techniques as part of comprehensive medical preparation for high-risk assignments, she replied carefully, providing context without revealing specific details. About her background or training history, Martinez approached with obvious respect and curiosity about the combat skills Lieutenant Commander Reyes had just demonstrated. "Lieutenant Commander, that strike was surgically precise. What kind of medical training includes combat techniques at that level?" Lieutenant Commander Reyes's response was measured, understanding that her defensive action had revealed capabilities that went far beyond routine nursing training and that further questions about her background were inevitable. Some medical assignments require preparation for hostile environments where traditional medical protocols must be combined with personal protection capabilities to ensure mission success and personnel safety. The third candidate, Petty Officer Second Class James Viper Rodriguez, who'd served as a military police officer before SEAL training, recognized the significance of what he had witnessed. "Ma'am, that technique required extensive martial arts training and combat experience. That wasn't basic self-defense. That was advanced tactical combat application." Lieutenant Commander Reyes was coordinating with arriving security personnel while processing the reality that her carefully maintained cover as routine medical support had been compromised by circumstances that had required her to demonstrate capabilities she had kept hidden for 16 weeks. Senior Chief Petty Officer Williams, the senior training instructor, arrived with the security team to assess the situation and understand how a dangerous intruder had been neutralized so effectively by medical personnel who weren't expected to possess combat capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Reyes, I understand you neutralized an armed intruder using defensive techniques. Can you provide details about what occurred and what training enabled you to handle this threat so effectively? Lieutenant Commander Reyes's explanation reflected appropriate operational security while providing context that would help Williams understand the situation and the capabilities that had enabled successful resolution of a dangerous threat. Senior Chief, an unstable individual gained unauthorized access to the storage facility and attempted to assault me. My training included defensive techniques that enabled me to neutralize the threat without causing permanent injury to the individual involved. Williams examined the unconscious Johnson while processing Lieutenant Commander Reyes's explanation and the obvious professional competence she had demonstrated in handling a situation that could have resulted in serious injury or death. Ma'am, the technique you used required extensive martial arts training and combat experience. What specific training background enabled you to neutralize a threat of this magnitude with a single strike? Lieutenant Commander Reyes understood that Williams's questioning reflected legitimate interest in understanding capabilities that could enhance training programs, but her response required careful balance between acknowledging military experience and maintaining operational security about classified assignments. My previous assignments required integration of medical expertise with personal protection capabilities for operations in hostile environments where medical personnel faced threats that exceeded traditional medical training preparation. The conversation was interrupted when Commander Patricia Chun, the training center's executive officer, arrived to conduct immediate assessment of the security incident and determine what had occurred during the unauthorized base access that had created danger for training personnel. Senior Chief Williams, I understand we had a security breach that resulted in assault on one of our medical officers. What's the current situation and how was the threat resolved? Williams's response provided context that revealed Lieutenant Commander Reyes's exceptional defensive capabilities while ensuring that appropriate credit was given for professional action that had prevented serious injury and resolved a dangerous situation. Commander Chun, Lieutenant Commander Reyes was attacked by an unstable intruder who had gained unauthorized base access. She neutralized the threat using defensive techniques that demonstrated advanced combat training and prevented what could have been serious injury or death. Chun looked at Lieutenant Commander Reyes with obvious curiosity about the combat capabilities she had demonstrated, trying to reconcile her nursing assignment with the advanced martial arts skills that had been displayed during the security incident. Lieutenant Commander Reyes, your defensive action was exceptional and probably saved your life. What training background enabled you to neutralize such a significant physical threat with apparent ease? Lieutenant Commander Reyes's response reflected the careful balance she had maintained between acknowledging military service and avoiding attention that might compromise operational security about specialized assignments and training that remained classified. Commander Chun, my previous assignments involved providing medical support for operations where personnel faced threats that required integration of medical expertise with defensive capabilities and tactical awareness. Chun was clearly intrigued by Lieutenant Commander Reyes's background and the implications for training programs that could benefit from her obvious expertise in areas that exceeded routine nursing qualifications. Lieutenant Commander, would you be willing to discuss how your background might contribute to enhancing our training programs, particularly in areas involving personal protection and defensive techniques? Lieutenant Commander Reyes considered Chun's request carefully, understanding that the security incident had revealed capabilities that could benefit SEAL training in ways that had never been available before. Commander Chun, I believe my experience could contribute to developing realistic training scenarios that prepare candidates for situations where medical and tactical requirements must be integrated under hostile conditions. Chun understood that Lieutenant Commander Reyes was offering to share training methodologies and operational insights that came from providing medical support during operations that required advanced personal protection capabilities and combat training. 2 days later, additional information about Lieutenant Commander Reyes's background began emerging through official channels and classified personnel reviews that revealed service record and training history that had been completely hidden beneath her routine nursing assignment. Her previous assignments had included service with Joint Special Operations Command medical units that provided tactical medical support for operations in the most dangerous and classified environments where medical personnel faced the same threats as combat operators while maintaining responsibility for life-saving medical care. What we're learning, Commander Chun explained to the training staff, is that Lieutenant Commander Reyes represents advanced integration of medical expertise with tactical capabilities, including extensive martial arts training and combat experience that enables her to function effectively in hostile environments where traditional medical support would be inadequate. Lieutenant Commander Reyes worked with training staff to develop enhanced personal protection training that tested candidates' ability to defend themselves while maintaining medical responsibilities, integrate defensive techniques with tactical medical procedures, and respond to threats while providing emergency medical care under hostile conditions. The operations I supported, Lieutenant Commander Reyes explained to candidates, required understanding that effective military medicine in dangerous environments demands integration of medical expertise with personal protection capabilities, situational awareness, and defensive techniques that enable mission success when medical personnel face the same threats as combat operators. Her training scenarios included realistic situations where candidates had to provide medical care while defending against attack, coordinate medical evacuation while engaging hostile forces, and balance medical requirements with personal survival when conventional medical protocols were insufficient for operational environments. The personal protection and tactical medicine programs that Lieutenant Commander Reyes developed were eventually adopted throughout Naval Special Warfare Command, establishing new standards for integrated medical tactical capability that enhanced the effectiveness of special operations medical support worldwide and improved survival rates for medical personnel operating in hostile environments. But perhaps Lieutenant Commander Reyes's greatest contribution was demonstrating that effective medical support in special operations environments required capabilities that transcended traditional nursing roles and included tactical awareness, personal protection skills, and combat training that enabled medical personnel to function effectively when facing the same threats as combat operators. The story of Lieutenant Commander Reyes became legendary at the training facility, shared with new classes as an example of how extraordinary capabilities often hide behind compassionate professional roles and how effective special operations medical support requires integration of medical expertise with tactical proficiency and combat capabilities. The most important lesson you can learn here, instructors would tell new candidates, is that in special operations, medical personnel are full team members whose survival and effectiveness depend on capabilities that extend far beyond traditional medical training. The person providing medical support might be someone whose combat training exceeds your own and whose defensive capabilities could save your life in situations where conventional medical support would fail. Years later, when Lieutenant Commander Reyes transitioned to other assignments, her legacy lived on in the enhanced training programs she had developed and in the understanding that effective special operations medical support required integration of medical expertise with tactical capabilities that enabled medical personnel to function as full team members rather than protected support staff. Her story reminded everyone that in naval special warfare, as in life, the most dangerous assumptions are those we make about people whose apparent roles don't reflect their complete capabilities, because the most effective special operations personnel are often those who can fulfill multiple roles seamlessly and whose hidden capabilities become essential when conventional approaches fail. Lieutenant Commander Reyes's demonstration that medical personnel could neutralize serious physical threats while maintaining medical responsibilities proved that special operations effectiveness depended on team members whose capabilities transcended traditional role boundaries and whose training prepared them for any situation that might threaten mission success or team survival. The moment when she had dropped Johnson with a single, calculated strike had lasted only seconds, but its impact continued for years, reminding everyone that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind the most caring professional appearances, and that the people who seem most gentle may be the ones whose training and experience enable them to respond with devastating effectiveness when circumstances require decisive action to protect themselves and others. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever discovered that someone you knew in a caregiving or support capacity actually possessed extraordinary defensive or combat capabilities that they kept hidden? Have you encountered people whose gentle professional demeanor concealed remarkable warrior skills? Tell us in the comments about the moments when you realized you'd been working alongside someone whose combat training exceeded your own understanding. And if you believe that the most capable people are often those who don't need to advertise their abilities, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Every story reminds us that extraordinary combat capabilities often hide behind compassionate professional roles, and that the people we notice least may be the ones with the most to teach us about true warrior spirit. We'll see you in the next story, where we'll discover another incredible tale of hidden expertise and unexpected revelation.